I kind of get it. The boomers and older, they didn't grow up on the internet, but even younger generations are falling for this. People just need to be more cynical about everything on the internet and take a moment to validate things.
The numbers of times I tell my friends, don't post about where we are until we get back.
Then I think the other big thing is just good hygiene. So use a password manager. I like 1Password.
To your point, everybody in every company is going to get hacked at the end of the day. So it's about trying to minimize, the negative impact there. Hello. Welcome back.
Hello. Good to see you as always.
Great to see you too. For episode number 49. Welcome back, everyone, to Living Richly with Curo. We still need to figure out what we're going to do for our big number 50 next episode, so stay tuned for that. But my name is Ann McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely partner, Atricia.
Hello, listeners and viewers. I'm Atricia Roberts, COO and partner here at Curo. Thanks for joining us.
Can we just give Atricia a little hat tip for her lovely lip shirt color combo on point?
It's almost a perfect match. It might be a little bit too perfect.
It's literally a perfect match. No, it's great. It's great. I'm like,
thanks.
Props. All right. Well, welcome back. If you are a regular listener, thank you so much for your support. If you are new to the show, welcome. Our goal here, as always, on the podcast and in what we do every day with clients is to educate, inform, inspire you on your life and financial journeys. And I am in particular super excited about our special guest today because he happens to be my little brother. So we have my bro, Michael McCabe, on the podcast, who runs a cybersecurity company. So we are going to pepper him with questions around how do we all keep ourselves safe online, which is a huge, massively important and also very challenging topic. So we're looking forward to welcoming him on here momentarily. But before we do that, as we always love to do, let's do an A-team catch up. So how are you, Atricia? Welcome to Q2.
I know. Can you believe it?
Nope.
Geez. I'm like, where's the year gone already?
Yeah.
It's kind of unbelievable. But I'm doing well. We are in the sort of like home stretch of the flurry of tax season activity. I mean, for many of our clients, they still go into September, but the majority of the tax chaos ends for us, hopefully in a couple weeks, which I'm very excited about. It's been a very busy tax season here for us. So can't wait for a little reprieve of that. But we are also, into golf season. Golf season is into full swing. But
See what you did there?
So yeah, I'm excited. I started my lessons last Sunday. The weather was beautiful. It was actually a little bit warmer than I was anticipating already for the end of March. But it was nice. I signed up for my first golf tournament. I've never played in a tournament.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous because I've never played 18 holes. So I've got to figure out how to get in a few 18-hole rounds before July. But I'm excited about it. My sorority, which I think I've mentioned on our podcast before, Delta Sigma Theta, is having their national convention in DC this summer. And it kicks off with a golf tournament on that Tuesday. So I'm very excited to be playing, of course, golf, but then also playing with my sorority sisters. It should be a lot of fun. So that's what's going on in my world. Golf lessons and taxes.
Like best ball? What is it called? Captain's choice? Best ball is it whatever the opposite of that is?
Usually whatever the opposite.
I've only ever played in golf tournaments that are best ball.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a prerequisite.
Yep. No, it's a best ball tournament. But then they will give out prizes for, closest to the pin, longest drive, those kind of things as well. So hopefully it'll be a casually fun golf experience. Yeah. But I am playing, on a foursome of women I've never played with before. So I'm like, all right, I got to get my skills up. I don't want to embarrass myself. It would be my normal group that I golf with who, are very friendly and kind. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's going to be good practice. Once a quarter, we do an offsite team bonding with the Curo team. Because for those of you who may not be familiar, we are in 2 office locations. So Atricia and I and one of our other team members go back and forth, but the rest of the team are either in our Virginia office or our Maryland office. And so once a quarter, we get out and do some bonding, which is really fun. And we are tomorrow going to Topgolf. So you'll get some practice in anyway.
Get some good swings in tomorrow. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I'm
the weather is
excited.
nice. So we'll
It's
see.
supposed to be really hot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But it'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be a
It'll
good
be great.
time. We always have fun together.
We do.
Alrighty. So what's going on with you?
Well, it's the beginning of a new quarter. So I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I love doing the Wheel of Life exercise. And I decided that I am going to write a blog post for our website to just kind of explain more about what this exercise is. But the gist of it is you grade different areas of your life based on your satisfaction in those areas, and you score them from 1 being least satisfied to 10 being very satisfied. And think of categories like financial, health, romance, fun and leisure, community, home environment. I know I'm probably missing a couple, but like I said, if you want to go to curoprivatewealth.com, by the time this episode drops, I will have a blog post written with a little bit more detail on how to go through that Wheel of Life. But I like to do that at the beginning of every quarter just to do a check-in to see how I'm feeling in different areas of my life. And it's also a nice focus on those areas that I tend to score less to kind of give me something to focus on over the next 3 months. Because 3 months, I think, is a really great amount of time to work on a goal. It's long enough to where you can actually make progress and you have time, but it's short enough that it can keep you focused. And, sometimes when you think about like 3 or 5 year goals, it's just like too far out into the future. So, so I identified that I need to meditate more, which I've talked about so many times with you and on this podcast. And I need to, declutter some things at home. Those are probably like the biggest. I need to have a little bit more fun.
Okay.
My fun and leisure was not the highest scoring category. So
I can see
need to have a
that.
little bit more fun. Yeah. But it's good. It's just like a good, like, okay, here are areas that I feel really strong about. And here are areas where I need to invest a little bit more time and energy and intention.
Oh, I love that. I'm excited to read the blog. I should probably give myself an assessment, even though I probably would score myself poorly
on everything.
Everything. I'm not often kind to myself. So
you score yourself, and then I'm going to add a couple points to each of the categories for you. Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's a wonderful idea. All right. So we got to focus on you having more fun and getting decluttered and some more meditation.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to remind you. I'll drop little reminders over the quarter to make sure that you're focusing on those 3 things in Q2.
Thank you.
Of course.
You for the accountability. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we are ready for Michael to come in. I guess he really goes by Mike. So we'll invite him in and I will read a quick bio on him, but let's go ahead and bring him in. So I'm just going to read a quick bio about Mike, and then we'll get into some questions. So Mike founded Cloud Security Partners back in 2017, originally to create and implement security solutions for a select number of clients. But since then, Cloud Security Partners has grown to be a recognized leader in cloud and application security. Michael's focus on cloud native software security, coupled with his experience in cloud infrastructure and security, enables him to help companies navigate security challenges with unique and client-tailored solutions. So over the course of Mike's career, he has led teams in startups as well as large financial institutions and has always helped companies with their security journeys. He also leads the OWASP, no idea what that stands for, but I'm sure you can tell us, Northern Virginia chapter, where he has coordinated countless talks and meetups about industry or with industry leading experts, and has been a speaker at lots of different conferences about application security, cloud security, and more. He also has 2 adorable little boys, my lovely nephews, and loves biking and enjoys being an amateur mechanic. So welcome again, Mike, to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A pleasure having you here. Cybersecurity is a hot topic for everyone and our clients included. So I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So before we go into more specific questions around cybersecurity, you are an entrepreneur, and we have entrepreneurs on the podcast frequently, and we love just to hear a little bit about that entrepreneurial journey. Like, how did you decide that you wanted to start your own company?
Yeah, it kind of happened over time. I didn't start out kind of thinking I was going to build a whole company. It started out doing some independent consulting. I enjoyed the freedom of kind of choosing what I wanted to work on. Being able to choose the projects, choose the clients, a little less, scheduled to having to be in an office every single day, having to work for a boss who kind of decides what you do day in and day out. I just really wanted to focus on the work, and so I started doing independent consulting in 2017, and it's basically grown since then to do more application security, cloud security, and everything in between. So over the past almost getting close to 10 years, we've done just about everything from incident response for huge corporations you've heard of to really interesting security engineering work. So started small and just grew from there. Grew with really interesting clients and built a good team of folks that I've worked with over the years. That's probably been the best part, is just kind of helping grow the team and grow their careers as well.
Yeah, I remember being on like family beach trips with you where you were doing both, like your full-time job and consulting. And I swear he's like on his laptop on a meeting and then on a phone call. It was, balancing all of it, kind of crazy. But I remember those days when you were just doing some kind of side hustle, we'll call it. And it's awesome to see how that's blossomed into this really successful, flourishing company. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And we often hear from the entrepreneurs who didn't necessarily set out to be entrepreneurial, but found themselves in that space. So it's a great story. What do you think has been some of your biggest challenges as a business owner, cybersecurity aside? What are some of the biggest challenges you faced over, the last almost 10 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is finding people who understand the issues, understand the technology, and can do the work. That's always kind of the biggest limiting factor for what we do. It's constantly changing. New technologies come out every week, basically. So you have to find people who are very smart, but also really interested in continuing to learn their craft. I kind of joke, and I'm sorry for any accountants that listen to this, but security and technology is not kind of like accounting. I'm sure things change in accounting, but I don't think GAAP is changing every single week, but maybe. Um, but things for us change all the time, and so you have to be able to learn and adapt super quickly. So finding folks who are good at that and also interested in doing that is probably the hardest part. So we've been able to find some very smart, hardworking people who really enjoy learning, and that's the team we've built. And that's what you need in technology and definitely in cybersecurity.
How do you identify those people, Mike? Do you use any sort of profiling tool, or do you have certain interview questions that you use to identify those sorts of characteristics that you're looking for? I mean, obviously the intelligence aside, but just somebody who has this thirst for wanting to learn and wanting to grow. Like, how do you identify those people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this is what I tell folks that are kind of earlier in their career, is the biggest thing I look for is someone who's doing things beyond kind of the basics. Like I talk to a lot of college students, people with 1 or 2 years of experience, and they've done, even if they're A students and they're doing well, I want to see someone who's really interested in being part of the community, so going to conferences, even giving talks is awesome, but also doing things like capture the flags, which are public events that happen where you compete against other people to try to like hack applications or cloud systems. And so anything that's kind of like the extracurriculars, writing code, building projects, hacking on things, that's what I look for in particular, because that shows someone who's not just doing it because they want a successful career, they want a high paying career, which is what a lot of people go into cybersecurity for, but someone who actually finds the technology piece interesting, and they're, spending some of their free time to actually learn more, not because they're getting paid for it, but because it's interesting to them. So people who hack on things, tinker on things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some specific cybersecurity and how do you keep yourself safe questions. So, what are some of the most common cyber threats that people face currently? And I know it's constantly changing, but what are y'all seeing right now?
I think the biggest things that face individuals, and I don't mean kind of high profile targeted folks, because there's certain people who get targeted more, CFOs, CEOs who control, the actual finances of a company. For the general person, it's still probably the biggest thing is scams and getting your account taken over on different systems. There's been a lot of attacks with something called account or credential stuffing, where basically attackers are just taking large data dumps, passwords, and emails, and just sending it against every single system out there. So banks, social media, basically everything out there to try to see if any of these passwords and emails work for someone. Then they'll use that to either do social engineering or phishing, or actually try to like transfer money out of an account, something like that. So that's a pretty common thing that we see, and a lot of companies are still suffering from that because it's a harder thing to detect and prevent. So that's one thing we need to take certain steps to prevent. But I think scams and just people getting tricked into kind of silly things is probably still the biggest issue that I see. Not that anyone in our family would ever fall for anything like that. Who constantly text me
LOL.
every 2 weeks about
We may
some.
we may know someone in our immediate family
Yes,
who
someone
is
who
not going to
is
be
amazing
named.
at technology who one time texted an email, which I still don't know how she did that, um, but yeah,
Bless
there's
her.
there's yeah, tons of scams, tons of tricks to try to get you to send credentials or call someone, install a remote access tool on your machine. So a lot of it is down to just not trusting anyone on the internet. Like
Mhm.
obviously there's a lot of scams that are too good to be true. But then also just don't Google help with my Yahoo account and click on the very first link. Like that's going to get you someone who is going to try to trick you to pay them or give them the password, things like that. Just be much more cynical. I think that's kind of the big thing. I'm not sure why certain generations, older generations, I kind of get it, the boomers and older, like they didn't grow up on the internet, but even younger generations are falling for this. People just need to be more cynical about everything on the internet and take a moment to validate things. Don't just click on things as soon as it hits your inbox. There's actually a recent case. There's a famous researcher who he actually got phished. He wasn't paying attention. He just clicked on a link, actually entered his password. So it can happen to anyone, and it's just because he was rushing. And so, really taking your time, validating things. Don't just click on things in your email without thinking about it. Um, a lot of hackers and fraudsters will use kind of urgency and fear to get you to do things, and so just validating that to make sure it's like it actually makes sense what they're trying to do. And then I think the other big thing is just good hygiene. So use a password manager. I like 1Password because I generate random passwords on every website, and then you just have a long password to keep your safe encrypted. And it's a huge ease of use help as well. So I'm not typing long passwords on every website, and I don't know my password to basically any website because it's a 30 or longer character string, and you shouldn't need to know your password for most sites. So that's a big help, and will also help with the credential stuffing issue I talked about before. So I think that's probably the biggest thing still these days because there's so many password issues, to use a password manager, and then also use multi-factor authentication. So wherever possible, turn that on, even if it's text-based. That's still better than nothing. So have that turned on, everywhere. And I think those two things will save you a lot, and just kind of going slow and not clicking on every link that comes your way are probably the biggest things to look out for people.
Yeah. That's helpful. I've noticed that I'm getting more, and just me personally, I'm getting more scammy things via text message. It used to be
Mhm.
Mhm.
email, and then I think Gmail has maybe gotten good at filtering out some of the junk. But now I get text messages like, oh, your iCloud payment is overdue. Like, click here to
Mhm.
submit payment before you lose access to your account. And I'm like, how are people allowed to text my cell phone with things like
Yeah.
this? And again, I'm
Yeah.
cynical about most things, but I understand how people get trapped into these things when they just get these text messages that make them feel like, oh, you have to do this now before something happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. we recently had to do, we kind of like joke on the team, like, oh, we have to do the security training, which we have to do, cybersecurity training every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was recently due, and it's only like, 15, 20 minutes, but they do try to update it every year with like recent common tactics. And the thing they talked about this year were QR codes, which I have to be honest, were not really on my radar screen, but it makes total sense that QR codes, they're everywhere, right? You go to a restaurant, there's a QR code. For contact information, there's a QR code, but they were showing emails that were constructed looking like they're from Microsoft with a QR code. And the other thing they were talking about is how AI now has made it so that it used to be spammy emails had a whole bunch of terrible grammar and they were formatted really terribly. And so it was visually kind of obvious to most people that it was a scam. But now with AI, a lot of these emails look very clean, the grammar's perfect. And so it's just even more challenging to determine, is that actually Microsoft or is it not? So they're getting, much better at this.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And that researcher that I was talking about, his name is Troy Hunt, and he published a whole write-up on what happened. And the email looked very legit, used the same styling, used the same verbiage, used a domain in the email and the domain that he clicked on that looked very similar. So they're getting very good. So it's really the advice I'd give if you're getting an email or a text message. The famous one recently has been Easy Pass. Your Easy Pass payment is overdue, or you owe a toll. If you think there's any legitimacy to it, don't click on the email, don't click on the text message. Go to easypass.com or whatever the website is. Check there, and then use your password manager there. One nice thing with password managers is they won't fill on the wrong website. So if you actually type in EasyPass or whatever it is, iCloud, it won't fill on some random hacker's domain. So if you actually think any of these are legitimate, never click on the link. Go to the actual website directly based on a known URL that you have, and then look and see if there's an alert there. Because just I don't trust anything over text these days. There's a million spam and a million fraud text messages. We even, as a small company, get a lot of payroll fraud, which is someone acting like they're an employee saying, "Hey, I need to update my direct deposit account." So even we get targeted with that stuff as well. So everyone is getting targeted these days for something.
Yeah. Well, you offered the advice about using a password manager and, not clicking on the links. Is there another top piece of advice that you could offer our viewers and listeners about how to protect their personal information or financial information online?
Yeah, I think the other part is keeping your systems up to date. So keep your laptop up to date, keep your phone up to date, and don't install anything sketchy there either. Again, don't download random exes or applications off the internet and run them on your laptop. Once you've done that, they basically have full access to your system. So it's a bad scenario to be in. I think keeping things patched is really important. It's not always the most direct attack vector these days for people. Again, it's mostly still social engineering and tricking people into clicking on links, but there's still a lot of bad software out there. And even if you Google things, a lot of times these days, the first link is a paid advertisement to actually malicious versions of it. There was a
Mm.
podcasting software actually that had that happen. I think it was last year, where the top link to download some podcasting software was a malicious version of it. So um, downloading things from the official app stores, things like that. Stick to more official routes for all of that. And honestly, the biggest thing to do is try to keep the amount of sites you actually use lower. Try to just
Mhm.
keep your data in the less places. I think about every single website you sign up for is going to be hacked at some point. It's just inevitable. So whatever data you have in there, assume under a certain timeline, if it's 5 years, 10 years, they're going to have some type of data breach. So the less data you have out there, the better position you're in. So I know that's not the easiest advice to follow, but try to use different emails, try to, keep your sensitive data off of different providers, because it's just inevitable that they're going to get hacked eventually.
That's scary.
Yeah, I know. For those folks who may not know what keeping things patched means, do you mind just
Yeah, so
explaining what that
yeah,
means?
yeah, your
Asking for a
operating
friend.
system on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, Apple pushes out updates all the times for those things for different security issues. Honestly, unless you're a high profile target, people aren't probably going to target your iPhone. Those are pretty expensive exploits these days. If you're a journalist, if you're a high ranking person at a company, maybe they would, but you're likely not. But still, just keep everything patched and up to date as much as possible. So, same thing with laptops, same thing with iPads, any devices, just try to keep it up to date whenever possible.
Thanks.
All right. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk specifically about social media. So we've been talking so far kind of generally about your phone and your internet usage, but what are some tips that you have for people to stay safe specifically on social media?
Yeah, I think it goes back to don't trust random messages and random people. There's, again, not that anyone in our family would ever fall for this, but there's
No.
tons of people who create fake, Facebook profiles and say, "Hey, my family's in a bad spot, and can you please PayPal us, $5,000, or we're going to lose our house or get kicked out of our apartment." There's a ton of that stuff, and it's just almost an epidemic of fake profiles trying to trick people into doing things, and so the best thing to do is don't trust anything you see on social media, even if you think it's from a trusted person. Always contact people outside of social media to validate something. This is the same thing we've seen, for folks who are CFOs or in accounts payable, things like that. They get tricked by emails, even phone calls, text messages saying, "Hey, send a gift card, send a payment to, um, this random account. We're purchasing a company, send $1 million here. We're keeping it hush hush." Always validate these things outside of the channel that you get the original message, because you can't trust anything on that original message. I think this is an aside from the social media thing, but a really scary thing that's happening these days is deep fakes where people can fake faces and fake voices. There's been not just scams, but just kind of malicious people doing deep fake voices to trick people into thinking like something terrible has happened to their son or daughter or something like that. So again, the same advice: validate these things outside of the main contact. Like if someone says, "Hey, I'm your bank. Can you validate this?" Be like, "No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to call my bank on the official number and validate it that way. I'm not going to trust some random phone call." Same thing on social media, um, email, text, all those things. Just never trust the original message, even if it looks legitimate, even if you're expecting it. So another fun case for anyone who didn't see it, I think it was last year or the year before, but a bunch of hackers basically deep faked the voices and faces of a bunch of people at a company on a video call to trick someone else to transfer. I don't remember how much money it was, but a lot of money. So not only did they have like all the messaging right, they had the voices and the faces right. So this is why if you run a company and you do accounts payable or you do payroll or you are buying companies, have a like 2 or 3 step process to validate every single time you're doing one of these steps, because it's amazing how technology, AI, has really gotten to the point where people can trick you into actually thinking you're talking to the president, the CEO of a company, because you're looking at them. But it's just gotten to the point where a lot of people can fake even that.
That's crazy. Crazy. What about like a code word or something, like a safe word that only people in the accounts payable department or only people who are moving money, have access to? Is that a way? Because it used to be like validate with voice or validate with
Yeah, I mean,
face,
that's what
right?
we've done in our
Yeah.
business, right? Clients
Exactly.
send emails asking for money. We call to get a verbal confirmation of that request.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, having like a challenge response where, you have a certain, this is a thing from the military where you have a
Yeah.
certain challenge, they have to respond with the right keyword, and that's definitely one way to validate it. And yeah, I just think having multi steps and not rushing, like that's the thing that gets
Yeah.
people the most, is just trying to get something done quickly, and that's what hackers try to do, is create a sense of urgency. So you have to slow that down, despite even if your boss is crazy and saying, "Hey, we got to get this stuff done all as fast as possible." Taking a step back, slowing down, validating it a second way is always going to be helpful.
Yeah. We had a personal experience a few years back. We had a summer intern and somebody sent her an email that was supposedly from me asking her to go get some gift cards. And, it said something like, I'm in a meeting, I can't talk right now, but I need you to go get these gift cards. And so I remember getting out of, because I actually was in a meeting, I got out of the meeting and I went to look for her and she wasn't there. And I asked one of our other associates, who said, oh yeah, she went to CVS to go buy those gift cards you asked her to buy. And I'm like, what gift cards? And she was like, oh yeah, you sent her an email asking her to go buy gift cards. So I call her on the phone. She's in line about to buy like hundreds of dollars of like Walmart gift cards or something. And, the email was like, I need you to just send me the PIN numbers immediately. This is like, rush. And so to your point, anytime there's this sense of urgency, definitely that should be a red flag going off. But, thankfully she was in line, hadn't bought any gift cards, and I got her to come back to the office.
And was going to buy these cards with her personal money, may I add, because it's not like we
and
give
then
the interns a corporate
she didn't
card.
have a corporate card. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She was going to get reimbursed. And I'm like, oh my, anybody need $500 worth of Walmart gift cards? Anyone? So thankfully it didn't go through, but it was really, really scary. But in that case, if you looked closely at the domain, even though it had my name, it was not, Curo private wealth domain. So, but again, this was a college intern, and we didn't have that level of technology training that we do now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And even domains can be fake to a degree. Different folks will register a domain that's like off by one character or is a subdomain, or even sometimes they use different character sets from like different languages to make it look like a 0 is actually like, an O or vice versa, things like that. So you really have to be careful with these things. And I mean, it's been this way for a while. Like hackers are definitely always on the kind of cutting edge of technology to figure out how to trick people, but they've gotten better and better over time. And they're doing it at scale too. It used to be kind of targeted where, okay, I'm going to go after this person or this handful of people. And now they just have it automated where it goes after everyone, like the Easy Pass thing. Everyone was joking about, I have overdue Easy Pass tolls, but really it was not.
Yeah. So one more cybersecurity question before we start to wrap up, because I've gotten this notice a bunch, especially through like Gmail, about accounts that have been compromised, right? This account has been compromised. If that happens for our listeners, what is the best way to handle that? Is changing the password enough?
Yeah, so the two things would be definitely change the password, turn on MFA. Actually, the third thing would be some sites allow you to log out of every other session. Not every website does. And some websites will log you out everywhere if you change your password. The other tricky thing that people will do, and we see this kind of across the board, is change your password, then create something like an app password. Certain sites don't allow like something like Mint to have your credentialed access, but they'll make you create like an app password that is a token that's just like a password, but it's not an email. So, if someone gets hacked, don't click on the email because it might be a fake email. Go to Gmail, go to your bank, whatever it is, change your password, look for any logged in sessions that are there, turn on MFA, and then look for things like applications that are linked to your account or app passwords, things like that, that were created to basically retain access even after you change your password.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
And MFA, just in case we didn't specifically explain that for those folks who may not be familiar, is multi-factor authentication, right? So that's where you log on with a username and password and some other, either like an authentication app, or they will text you a code that you have to put in to be able to log in. Hopefully everybody's familiar with MFA, but just in case.
Yeah. I know someone in DC who we're related to who probably doesn't know what that is. So good to clarify.
You're picking on her an awful lot, I have to say.
Hey, when you're the tech support for the family, you have to, you get a little jaded.
I can imagine.
Oh my God, you should see our family chat. It's hilarious. She's always like, can someone help me with this technology thing? And we're all like, Michael, you're on call. You're on duty. Also not a great idea, back to the social media, to like post your entire itinerary when you're going to be out of the country for, a month, for example. But
the numbers of times I tell my friends, don't post about where we are until we get back. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like later post.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Michael, this has been super helpful, interesting, also terrifying, I may say. But important, right? Important for us to hear these things, important for us to take the steps that we possibly can to protect ourselves, even though, to your point, everybody in every company is going to get hacked at the end of the day. So it's about trying to minimize the negative impact there. But the last question we have for you, and we ask all of our guests this question, is what does living richly mean to you?
I think as I've gotten older and I've had kids, especially, I think simplicity is the biggest thing. The less you have to do, which is very hard when you have kids and you run a business, but just keeping things as simple as possible, not complicating your life, and that applies in so many different ways. I think is probably the way I'd answer that question. So you have more time for family, have more time for your interests, things like that. Never easy to accomplish, but something I'm always trying to do.
Love that.
Yeah, I
That's
like that one.
beautiful. Yeah. All right. Where can people find you, Mike, if any company leaders are listening and interested in talking more about your firm and the services that you offer? What's the best way for people to find you?
We're at Cloud Security Partners on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way, and cloudsecuritypartners.com as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining
Yes.
us. This was a great conversation. And thanks again for everybody tuning in. Please don't forget to send us your questions. Send those to podcast@curoprivatewealth.com. And if we answer your question on a future episode, we will send you an Amazon gift card as a thank you. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this so you are alerted when we drop new episodes, which is every Friday. And give us the 5 stars. Let us know what you liked about the episode, and make sure to share with a friend as well, especially all these cybersecurity pieces of advice and tips. So thanks again for joining us, and until next time,
Live richly.
Thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.